Good morning, everyone. I think we're going to get started here. So this is the panel on the state of in-vehicle payments, opportunities and challenges, and hopefully we're going to be able to hear a lot of about the opportunity and less about challenges. This panel is going to be about, what are the kind of growing benefits to an in-vehicle payment wallet in the vehicle, and some of the startups that are actually doing a lot of the work that will make that possible. And then we'll hear a little bit about what an OEM actually is thinking about the opportunity right now, and we'll start by hearing a video, hearing from Stellantis, Ajit Asirvadam. Thanks for the help with that. And he'll kind of give us their perspective on the space.
Hi, I'm Ajit Asirvadam, Global Head of In-Car Commerce at Stellantis. I'm excited to be here at COVESA to share my thoughts and also to learn from leaders and innovators in this space. One of the questions posed to me was what I thought were compelling use cases for in-car commerce. What comes to mind immediately is food and beverage. Those are the top two things that my kids want when we get on the road, whether it's a 10-minute drive or a 5-hour drive. The convenience of being able to use my voice or preemptively offer up some options while I'm on the road definitely trumps some of the other use cases inside the vehicle. It comes as no surprise because over 70% of commuters in the U.S. enjoy at least one meal inside their vehicle. It's important for the OEMs and for tech to focus in on what that persona is looking for and how we can bring the convenience into their vehicles for them. The other shift in investments that I think the industry is observing is on renewable sources of energy. And what that does for in-car commerce is it pushes up and helps us reprioritize park and charge or plug and charge use cases for our customers without having the need to scan to pay, but also offering the convenience and security of digital payments in that space. Thanks. One of the other topics also planned for discussion at the gathering is what that evolution of in-vehicle payments will look like over the next 5, 10, 20 years into the future. Really the lines between fintech and automotive is blurring much quicker than anticipated, with customers and automakers realizing the value of an in-vehicle wallet that's going to address a varied set of use cases in the vehicle. Payment orchestration has always been a point of contention for in-car commerce, and the ability to be able to do that effectively is going to win a lot of battles and drive economical growth. We already have examples of two-factor authentication for in-car payments, ranging from biometrics to PIN codes. Truly, the next step that I see is the vehicle becoming its own wallet and being able to transact without the need for human intervention. leveraging its sensors all around. The other aspect is in terms of the types of transactions that customers are expecting, where we drive complexity down from multiple transactions ranging from your vehicle payments to in-car transactions to microtransactions into a single point of sale, which becomes the vehicle. I think there's the opportunity to fold in eventually finance payments, insurance, all of that into one payment that makes it easy from the customer's standpoint as they get into their vehicle. This is something that they see from other digital transactions that they conduct today, and they've again come to expect the same for in-vehicle purchases.
Great, and so that we just heard from Ajit, who's head of in-vehicle payments at Stellantis, kind of laying out how they kind of see that vision. And so today joining us are 3 startups that are working in that direction, providing that capability to OEMs. So I want to introduce Todd Thomas, so CRO of Aiden Auto, Vamsi Putravu from Mavi.io, and Jens Cohen from Starfish, Managing Director at Starfish. So let's jump right into our questions. So how are you as startups beginning to solve some of the problems, such as the connectivity and authentication problems that you're seeing with payments that you normally run into in payments, and how do you solve those challenges for automotive? Vamsi, do you want to take that?
Sure. Morning, everybody, and thanks, John. So Mavi.io is a retail middleware platform that's bringing a marketplace experience and in-car commerce to OEMs. That's what we do as a company. So a big part of this, as you heard from Ajit, is making the whole commerce experience seamless, right? And one of the first steps to that is authentication. And with so many different compliance requirements across Europe and obviously in US, what becomes super critical is, how do you make that experience seamless? But just looking at it from outside in as the retailers, right? When we go talk to a Chick-fil-A or we go talk to all of these large retailers, customers have strong loyalty that with each of these retailers. They expect to be able to redeem that loyalty and that loyalty to be recognized. Unless authentication is tied with loyalty of the retailers, the experience is just not going to be used. So that's what we are finding. So it's super critical that this problem is solved and make the experience seamless. Yes.
Great. Jens, what do you think? You've done some work in this area. What are some of those? Are you seeing it getting easier or harder, maybe?
It's getting easier and harder at the same time. But what we see is that there's a lot of development in the financial services payment kind of way. What is their take on getting forward in providing the right environments and frameworks in going forward? But we also see on the technical side of things that there are framework conditions there which enable a few things. And we at Starfish, we are a technology company providing various technology stacks in regards to payments. So we're coming from the banking payments kind of area, and we provide technology stacks to our global customers, most of the time OEMs, but also like international merchants doing or helping them on orchestrating the payment flows globally. And we also have been then in a position to help one of the big brands in the automotive space to build the first in-car payment solution out there, which is live on the streets, up and running, and which facilitates perfectly what is currently available from the payment and banking industry. Like, for example, delegated authentication brings a lot of new possibilities in terms of how can you design the user experience in the car, how can you leverage the identification problem into the car. So we use that in order to enable our customer to build a super perfect solution, which is really seamless. You enter the car, you can pay with your fingerprint or with your like Face ID already. So this enables the OEM and our customer in this respect to build a solution which is as seamless as possible, not thinking about payment at all from a driver perspective. And this is also a very much important thing to think of what can payment be. I mean, if you think of going into the car as a driver, you're not thinking about how can I pay, what can I pay for or something. It's more a question of how the experience in driving and using the car itself and the very moment there, how can that be as seamless as possible, and then payment is behind the curtain at best, and this is something what we try to facilitate.
Great. Yeah, it seems like now connectivity is a given. Authentication technologies or security of the platform is now available and can be leveraged. So it seems like the environment is now prepared to take that on. So what do you see as the role of the OEM in making in-vehicle payments possible, besides building the car itself? But what do you see as the responsibilities that they need, the new responsibilities that they'll be taking on by bringing in-vehicle payments to the vehicle?
It's a super interesting question, and I would also like to invite you to the session later today at 11 o'clock, where Markus, our CTO, will be giving a bit some of the insights there. From our perspective, it's pretty much depending on how the OEM sees himself in this kind of role. I mean, we see OEMs who like try to solve dedicated payment, or if you stay in the payment world, in the dedicated payment problems to be solved for parking, for EV charging, whatsoever kind of thing. But if you look at the other side of the spectrum, you see OEMs taking their role or try to get into the role of orchestrating a whole ecosystem of possibilities out there. And we see in-car payment or payment in the car or EVP more as a new channel of commerce. Like, I mean, we've seen POS, we've seen e-commerce, we've seen mobile commerce, and the commerce around the car, and also the colleague from Stellantis referred to that one, as a completely new kind of channel where you like try to do commerce, or want to like buy things, or want to get into services of things. And this environment also has a special frame conditions. I mean, we need to take into consideration what's happening. If you take, for example, the EV charging example from yesterday, you need really to think of how is the user experience there? Where do you start the flow of transaction there? Is it in the car? Is it on a mobile? Is it outside of the car? Are you closing it in the car at the end of the day? So there's a lot of things to consider, and that's the reason why I think this is really a new kind of channel of doing so. And it's more the OEM need to take this challenge to go into this kind of business. Yeah. But we see that there's a lot of momentum there, and in terms of revenue and share, which is possible there, there's a lot of things to win. But at the end of the day, you have to take this role and get into that one. Yeah.
So Vamsi, it's 10 engineers, and then you're ready to go and implement the wallet, and that's it?
That's right. No, I think, look, what we are seeing out there, I mean, obviously we are working with Ajit and some real innovation. One of the biggest things that we are seeing is that there are super smart people in the OEM teams, and they're innovative, right? They're, be it Sven from the car team or Ajit. So we are seeing this across the spectrum at the OEMs, where number one, the OEMs know what their customers and their drivers need in the car. They should own the experience end to end, or define the experience, right? And then use the partnerships that are there in the ecosystems effectively. So that's really a best of breed approach, I feel, that the OEMs need to be taking, where they define exactly what the end-to-end experience looks like. But then, obviously, like Ajit and all of us know, fintech is a world that is merging with the OEM auto space very quickly. And there is a lot of innovation that has already happened that the OEMs need to piggyback on. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's use the right partnerships, but then let the OEMs own the experience. That's what I'd say.
Great. Well, any other challenges or things that they might need to think about operationally?
Yeah, absolutely. Big challenges
IT
are
systems?
in terms of security. I mean, that's one thing that always pops up is we're seeing, in Europe and US and everywhere else, different kinds of security requirements that pop up that are going to, customers are going to demand that, right? I mean, as much as they like to go spend their money, they also want to make sure the transactions are secure. So we are, again, partnering as Mavi, we are partnering with, companies that are associated with Qualcomm for biometrics and making sure voice and video and these kind of identity is being securely passed, and we're able to work with the OEMs on that. So I feel that the piece of security and making sure the transaction is seamless is super critical.
Great. And Todd, Vamsi's talked a lot about partnerships. You've done quite a few partnerships in your career. Can you talk about what you think are some of the more valuable partnerships, or how they can approach these partnerships to succeed?
Sure. I think to succeed in this ecosystem, we really need to embrace a customer-centric view. What is it that the end users are looking for and asking for? And I think what we see is there are a couple of very universal experiences and universal frustrations, and those are parking. Everyone has driven somewhere and had difficulty finding a place to park, and then how do you pay for your parking? Charging is the new experience that's very universal. Where do I charge my car? How do I pay for it? And as Ajit mentioned, where do you get something to eat along the way? That's again, those are the common experiences. You're on your trip, you need to park, you need to charge, you need to get something to eat or a cup of coffee. So I think as we look at this experience, we need to build partnerships with the companies that can deliver those services and make those services seamless and intuitive, and even proactive. Our cars should be anticipating our needs. Our cars should know when we're arriving at our destination and proactively help us find that parking spot or the charging spot. Proactively let us know that, hey, your favorite restaurant is around the corner and here's a $5 off coupon for that. And another huge piece of it is kind of the topic of this panel, which is the payment. The payment process, people want a really simple payment process. And I think it's going to be very competitive over the next 5 to 10 years of who's going to win in this space. Everyone's going to want to be involved and get a piece of those, the fees involved in that. But I think the people that have the simplest process will be the ones that succeed. People don't want a 2-click, 3-click process. They don't even want to think about it. The obvious example is the Uber. You take your ride to a destination, and when you arrive, you just get out of the car and go on your way. You don't have to pull out your phone and pay by app. You don't have to pull out your wallet. Payment simply takes place. And I think we should see that same type of process when we park our car, when we charge our car, when we order something to eat from our car and drive through the drive-thru to pick it up. We shouldn't have to even think about payment. It should simply be taken care of by the car.
Great. Well, and you're all startups. You're all at startups. How has it been working with the OEMs? What could the OEMs do to make it easier to work with all of you?
Well, I think one challenge that's been a huge challenge for the whole automotive ecosystem for decades now is that every OEM has had different ways of connecting to their cars, heterogeneous data sets, and it's a very fragmented market, with even the largest companies having less than 10% market share. So for a service provider to provide services across multiple brands has been almost impossible, simply not scalable. So I think one huge, I would say, tectonic shift in the automotive world is the move to Android Auto operating system. That solves a lot of those problems. It standardizes and normalizes all the data and now makes it possible for service providers to create one service that can be distributed across multiple brands. So I think that's really enabling what I think will be a huge growth in in-vehicle services over the next 5 to 10 years.
Jens, you want to weigh in on that too?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on those points, and it also pretty much depends on the mindset or mindset shift, which probably is also required on the OEM side of things. If we think of the possibilities out there with regards to what can you do in the car and around the car commerce, there is no way of having control on all the parties involved, all the services which are provided there. If you take the Apple as an example, they started with a phone, they started with their own kind of apps installed on that phone. but the momentum was like picking up when there were like third-party developers able to develop services on the phone itself, when there was a kind of ecosystem enabled and trying to facilitate it to let others play a vital role in this whole game. And I think this is the kind of shift which would need to be required on the automotive side in order to orchestrate and yeah, even support on this kind of setup. Because from my perspective, there's no way of controlling the whole thing and benefiting from it all. So whenever there's a possibility to support on that, whenever there's a kind of companies like you guys bringing things together, that brings the whole industry forward. And for us, it's super interesting because we provide single technology pieces into the car and into the backend world. And whenever there's like the commerce picking up, then it's a bit beneficial for us. And we, from our solution, provide it in a way that it's capable for all merchants. It's designed to be open loop. I mean, it's based on the credit card frameworks, on the credit card standards, on also the cryptographic requirements, and also the privacy requirements which are there. So this is also already like, or this is possibly to be used in this kind of environment. And if you then have the possibility to grow this ecosystem, then the whole story begins to start.
Great. Vamsi, how about you?
Yeah, so from the OEM standpoint, like both of them mentioned, the ecosystem definitely is fragmented or has been fragmented. And one of the challenges, again, looking at it outside in for us as Mavi, what we've done is we said, okay, there is one side of the ecosystem that's fragmented, and there is standardization happening, whether it's through COVESA's initiatives or Android or whatever, right? Like all the big tech is essentially getting in there, and there will be consolidation and standardization on the OEM side. But on the retail side, if we think about what has happened in the last 2 years, retail has completely changed as we knew it pre-pandemic and now. If you look at the kind of standardization, obviously, I've got teenage kids who all they do is just pick up their phone and they're able to Uber Eats whatever they want, and they expect the food to arrive, and that's the world that they live in, and that's what they're going to, all of these teenagers are going to be drivers, and that's how the experience they will demand in the car to be. So at Mavi, what we are taking or bringing onto the table is a standardized interface of a very sort of fragmented retail world. So we provide that marketplace experience, and we're bringing it in a very standardized, harmonized way for the OEMs. But I totally agree. Android's a big, Android automotive, and the kind of initiatives that COVESA is taking on are super critical and will play a major role in providing the kind of standardization that we've seen in the open source world of enterprise software.
Great, and what's exciting for me to see with all of you, except for maybe Todd, Jens, and Vamsi, you never worked in auto before, and I think everybody's startup here is maybe 2 years or less in terms of their founding, and already seeing some great success with major automakers, some stuff in production already, stuff moving into production. It must be very exciting. I can tell you, 3 years ago that wasn't the case. It was even much harder. So it's a testament to being able to see that these things are now being able to be implemented easier and actually move things into production within those time frames. So it's pretty exciting. Todd, what do you think? I mean, is this the speed at which this is happening? Is this what you've seen before? Or?
No, there's clearly a lot of momentum right now, and I think that's because there's huge pent-up demand by the OEMs to develop services revenue, and I think that was accelerated by COVID. When there were stoppages in manufacturing, they wanted services revenue to fill those gaps. I think OEMs are much more actively looking to develop services revenue. At the same time, there's service providers that have been wanting to get into cars and connect to cars and deliver services into the car. So there's pent-up demand on that side as well. So the Aiden platform is really a services platform that connects any service provider directly to the car, which very quickly allows OEMs to deliver services, monetize those services, and at the same time allows service providers to finally be able to deliver their services. And once they're on the aid and services platform, they can expand that across any OEM and any brand, because it's all based on AAOS. So if you're live with Toyota, we can quickly turn you on to Ford or Stellantis, and it makes it very scalable for service providers to really serve the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, it truly feels like 1.0 of digital has really come to automotive. But that being said, so everything is easier for you, but that makes it also easier for competitors. So how are you looking at the competitive landscape? Or is it at a stage right now where everybody is working to a common goal? So how do you feel about that?
Well, I'd say from the Aiden perspective, we are a service agnostic and brand agnostic services platform. So we love the explosion of all the different services. And we think we should put those choices into the hands of the drivers. So if you have 3 different parking services, you make them all available in the car. The company that delivers the best experience, that's the one that the drivers are going to stick with and they're going to win. So again, it's taking that customer-centric view, creating the best experience for those end users. Your project will succeed.
Great. Bamsi, how about you?
Yeah, no, so look, I've been in enterprise software and for 20 plus years, we've seen the cloud, we've seen mobile, we've seen all of these huge tectonic shifts of technology, which has obviously eased the path and for startups and for technology players to come in and provide or expand the competitive landscape, right? And that's what is going to happen in the automotive space as well. The critical thing for us as a startup, and Cynthia and I, Cynthia, our CEO, and myself, the super important thing for us is we focus on the problem that we're trying to solve. Don't try to boil the ocean. Focus on the problem that you're trying to solve and solve it well. Otherwise, there will be 10 other players. I know there are multiple people trying to solve parking. Like Ajit said, we are super focused right now on QSR and food and that vertical and making it as seamless as possible. And there are obviously going to be first movers advantages there. Competitive landscape is always there, but we feel, our strong suite is the retail, 20 plus years of retail experience that we bring to the table.
And so you really want to work with some of your competitors or
absolutely
quote-unquote competitors.
We look at ourselves as being focused in certain verticals and certain areas and then expand through partnerships.
And Jens, your experience is a little bit different. You actually consult and provide services and develop systems. Are you looking at more partnerships or working together with as many players in the ecosystem?
Yeah, that's exactly the case. So we have a lot of experience and a lot of background in the automotive, in the payment space made over the last 15, 20 years. So this all went into what we currently provide as technology components for our customers. And in this respect, we have a special USP in this area because there is no business model around which is really tackling the same way we are tackling it. So, and from our side of things, it's really interesting and it helps us and it helps our client and it helps the ecosystem if there's a lot of things going around it, if there are a lot of OEMs there, if there are a lot of service providers there, be it on a digital service space, be it on a physical kind of thing, be it on the curbside stuff. So whenever there's someone around who's trying to do or trying to utilize the payment stuff in the car, then it's beneficial for us, and we're super open to work together with all of them. And we can, from our technology side, provide really something what is standardized. There is no major need of onboarding of participants required, as we rely on credit card standards and the rates which are out there in the market since 15 years. It's super easy to onboard that, and we are in this game. We try to help those parties to build up good business models on that one, and this is our ambition. So we are super open for collaboration, partnerships, and helping in the ecosystem.
Great. So what advice, you're sitting down with the new head of payments of a brand new OEM, they're like going to take it seriously now. What advice would you give them on what are some of the first steps for them to kind of move into this space?
I think one of the first questions that this role would need to answer is, what is your own ambition as this role, or as an OEM in this space? Are you looking for some for use cases or monetizing use cases specifically to a car in specifically domain? Then you probably would end up with a service you implement and you run this kind of thing. But if you're on the spectrum where you try to utilize or benefit from the revenue streams in your own space, but also with third parties, then you should really make up your mind how you want to set this up in terms of building a trustful, delightful, and moving forward ecosystem with internal parties, but also with external parties. And this takes, from my perspective, a lot of also internal mind shift, or the right internal minds on this kind of thing, because you would have various parties, external parties, to be involved in the super value chain which is out there. But this requires some kind of the right mindset of things, because you'd end up with less control of what is happening around services in the car. But in order to be clear on how to move forward, I think that's something what you need to clarify from the very moment onwards.
Right. Vamsi, what advice would you give the head of payments of OEM X?
Look, what we are finding out there is there are some super smart people in the OEMs, and transactional revenue is important for all of them, right? So they now, through their innovation teams and other teams, have focus on this transactional revenue piece. The only advice I would say is, this space has a lot of R&D that has happened in the last 10, 15 years. Leverage that and piggyback on that. Don't try and reinvent some of the things that have been done, tried, and tested, right? So control your experience end to end, but form partnerships. That would be my, from a time to market standpoint, I think it totally makes sense. Try to form partnerships first, and then, of course, if there are pieces of the stack that you want to own, build it.
Got it. What are your thoughts? What advice would you give them?
I would suggest starting by defining the desired in-vehicle experience from the driver's perspective. What is the experience that drivers want and expect in that vehicle? And then work backwards from there, building the partnerships that can bring that experience to life. We really had a great time last night in the showcase. It was a great event, by the way. Thank you. And in the vehicle, we were able to demo Mavi's On My Way Commerce, which is a fantastic user experience and allows you to figure out where you do want that food on the way home. We're also able to demonstrate Let Me Park and Let Me Charge. So really those top use cases for drivers, parking, charging, where do I get something to eat, and really demonstrating a seamless, enjoyable user experience. So I think that's the place to start. What is the experience that drivers want and really expect, and deliver that experience?
Great. So kind of the wrap-up question here. I mean, where do you see this, 5 or 10 years might be too much, but let's stick with 5. Let's stick with 5 months. Where do you see the if you can kind of make some predictions, where do you see kind of some of the in-vehicle payments growing, or what do you start seeing along the road in the next 2 to 5 years, let's say?
Well, I think 15 years back, when phones became connected and moved from being feature phones to smartphones, we saw an explosion of services and apps available on those phones, and they've become an integral part of our lives. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see the same type of explosion in cars, that cars can truly be connected, and we can now deliver different services into the car. So I think you're going to see an explosion of services that are available in vehicle without any reliance on a phone. The car itself becomes that next connected device. So I think we're really going to have an explosion in fun and enjoyable experiences for the drivers.
We all know the car is the ultimate mobile device, and we will expect the kind of things that we do on our mobile device while we are driving. So driver distraction, I think working with the things like, road safety and transportation safety, these are all partners in the larger ecosystem that have to come together and think about what does in-vehicle experiences mean. Obviously, 5 years, you're talking about more autonomy, and drivers have more sort of brain power to do other things that they like to do. And we know that when drivers have more time, they shop, they want to browse, consume media and things like that. So once we get into the space that consumers are going to demand that kind of an experience, and the car better be ready to deliver those experiences in a way that the mobile phone is already doing.
Jens?
Yeah, and to add up on this, as we are here a payment panel, I think the driver will in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, not even think about, oh, I have to pay something. I mean, he will consume, or this is my view on this point. He will consume various services around the car, around the vehicle, with super exciting experience, but he will never think of doing a payment itself. He will sit in the car. He would like authenticate themselves as he would do it for any other reason as well. I mean, the ID topic in the car has nothing to do with payment, but solve other problems. But in this respect, the payment is something what is just happening in the background once the driver is there and authenticates stuff in, smiling in the face cam or doing a fingerprint, whatever kind of thing. But he never would think of, okay, I need to pay for my parking spot or my service I like to consume. This will all happen in the background, at least for the OEMs and the cars which are super successful in this area.
Great. Any last parting thoughts? Any last advice that you guys can give the audience here?
Yeah, from our view, it's super relevant. I mean, it's our first participation at COVESA, so I would like to thank you. I mean, for inviting us, letting us participate in this kind of conversation. We are super keen on connecting with you and also with you guys, because our game is really to facilitate all the different service providers and different partners here. So I'm super excited that we talk here and that we have the connection now here. And at the end of the day, payment is something what affects all kind of monetization. So we are really here to help and to support on things. Thanks.
Fantastic. Vamsi, parting thoughts?
Parting thoughts is Porto was a lot of fun and we missed you. Those of you who are not here would definitely highly recommend. I mean, we had a lot of value in from this event, and we had great ideas, brainstorming that happened all the way from the OEMs to partners and the whole ecosystem over here. So I would say, as this industry progresses, we need more dialogue. We need some of these players to come together and think about these experiences. And Mavi is here. We are the retail middleware platform. So we're pulling all of the retail together and providing it in a ubiquitous way for OEMs as a middleware platform. So please let us know. Happy to speak to anyone that's interested in that service.
I would just echo the same comments. It was a fantastic event, and so many great representatives from the OEMs and service providers, and we've had so many great conversations, and I think multiple new partnerships that have begun here. So thank you for a great event and a great location, and looking forward to Detroit.
Great, yeah, and thanks everyone for joining the panel. I really appreciate it. We will also be hearing some other presentations later today on the topic of in-vehicle payments. So Jens, your co-founder Marcus, will be giving a talk as well, and Vamsi is going to be providing a proposal around an in-vehicle wallet. So we'll, if you're interested in learning about that, please join us there. We also have another presentation around the topic of payments in automotive, kind of more generally, moving even beyond in-vehicle payments to some of the other areas that might be of interest, such as subscriptions and embedded banking and those topics. So thank you again for joining the panel. It was great to see everyone's success and to know that you're making progress in the industry. So thank you.